My name is Nathan, and even today, I avoid talking about that night. It's not because I'm ashamed or scared of what people might think. It's because some stories, when you speak them out loud, feel like you're calling them back. And some things, once you see them, you can never unsee. It was just supposed to be another ordinary night. Chris and I had gone out without expecting anything special. We were at our usual dive bar, leaning against a crooked table, drinking semi-warm beer and dragging out half-hearted conversation, the way we did almost every weekend. You know when you go out more just to not stay home than because you're actually excited about anything? That was us. Then Logan showed up. He barged in, loud and buzzing with energy, pulling up a chair without even asking. "You guys won't believe this, man. I scored us some invites. Big-time party tonight, across town, only the elite." Chris and I looked at each other, half smirking, half skeptical. Stuff like that didn't happen to guys like us. Our world was cheap beer, greasy bar food, and if we were lucky, music playing off somebody's cracked phone. But Logan was genuinely hyped. He said he had a connection, that it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. No way we could pass it up. So we didn't. We left our half-empty beers, settled the tab in a hurry, and each raced home to try and make ourselves look halfway decent. Honestly, it was almost embarrassing looking in the mirror knowing where we were heading. We agreed to meet outside the club around midnight. When I got there, even from a block away, it felt like stepping into another world. The streets were spotless, the lights were bright, and luxury cars lined the curbs, the kind you only see in TV commercials. Well-dressed people drifted past me, their expensive colognes and perfumes hanging thick in the cool night air. And behind the heavy club doors, I could hear the pulse of bass-heavy electronic music. Chris showed up right after me. Logan was already there, grinning and waving us over. We pulled ourselves together, smoothed out our jackets, not that it helped, and got in line. The bouncer barely glanced at us. He just checked the invite Logan handed him, nodded, and let us through, like we belonged. And man, the second I stepped inside that place, I felt it. It was like walking onto another planet. The lighting was low, the walls and floors glowing under swirls of neon. Tables glittered with bottles of liquor that cost more than we made in a month. Cocktail waitresses glided past with drinks that looked like tiny art pieces balanced on trays. And the people? They were beautiful. All of them. Laughing, dancing, shimmering under the lights like nothing bad had ever happened in their entire lives. We stood there for a while, just trying to take it all in, not even knowing where to look first. Then, in the middle of all that, we noticed it. A raised section of the club, up a short staircase. It was cordoned off, more exclusive. There was a guy up there, well-dressed, surrounded by beautiful people, laughing and handing out drinks like he owned the place. And maybe he did. Everything seemed to orbit around him. But to us, at that moment, he was just another reminder that we didn't belong. And honestly, that was kind of the point. We wanted to forget for one night who we really were. So we stuck close to the bar, pretending to blend in. Logan, always the bold one, was already chatting up some girls near the dance floor. Chris stood stiffly, clutching his drink like it was the only solid thing in the room. And me? I just tried to look like I wasn't completely out of my depth. That's when he approached. Derek. I didn't even see where he came from. One second it was just us, and the next, he was there, smiling like an old friend. "You guys are new here, huh?" His voice was smooth, confident, like he already knew the answer. We laughed awkwardly. It was obvious we didn't belong. Logan scored some invites. "We're just trying to enjoy the opportunity," I said, forcing a casual shrug. Derek's smile widened slightly. Something about it felt welcoming. warm, even. "You made the right call," he said. "Nights like this don't come around often." He shook each of our hands firmly, his gaze holding just a little too long, like he was reading something deeper than our expressions. Then, without missing a beat, he motioned toward the bar. "Drinks are on me tonight. Enjoy yourselves. The night's just getting started." And before we could even thank him, he was already waving down the bartender, ordering rounds of something expensive, the kind of bottles we wouldn't even dare touch on our own. It all felt so easy, so natural, as if he had done this 1,000 times. And of course, we slipped right into it. We toasted. We laughed. We talked about everything and nothing. Cars, music, vacations we'd never take. For a little while, life felt simple, warm, good. As the hours dragged on, the club slowly thinned out. But that VIP section upstairs? Still alive, still buzzing. And Derek was right in the center of it. Laughing, telling stories, clinking glasses with people whose lives we couldn't even imagine. But every now and then, he would glance down at us, not calling us over, not demanding anything, just reminding us that we were still his guests. And somehow, that made us feel important. Because deep down, everyone wants to belong to something bigger than themselves. And we were no different. Around 2 in the morning, when I could barely track how many drinks I'd had, Derek came back. No preamble. "The party's dying here. Let's take it somewhere else." He said it with a grin, like he was offering us a glimpse behind some secret door that only a few ever got to see. Logan jumped at the chance. Chris hesitated. But after that much alcohol, hesitation didn't last long. And me? I wanted to say no. Some stubborn, tiny part of me was screaming to walk away. But curiosity, that damned curiosity won. Again. We left the club with Derek and about 6 others glued to him like moths. Nobody asked where we were going. Nobody questioned anything. It was like we were caught in a current, too strong to swim against. He didn't give us directions, just told us to follow his car. A sleek, black luxury sedan that looked more like a spaceship. Chris, Logan, and I piled into a rideshare. Our driver was an older guy, stone-faced, who didn't say a word the whole ride. The city slipped away faster than it should have. Streetlights grew fewer, and the roads turned narrow, flanked by thick, gnarled trees that formed shadowy tunnels over the cracked asphalt. Mist rolled along the ground, clinging to the earth like some living thing. Chris, drunk and trying to stay upbeat, joked from the back seat. "Feels like we're heading straight into nowhere, huh?" We laughed. But inside, I felt a cold twist in my gut. After what felt like half an hour of weaving through dark, deserted roads, we finally arrived. It was a small marina, old, crumbling, almost hidden by the fog. The air smelled of wet wood, old metal, and something faintly sour. Several boats bobbed lazily at the docks, creaking softly with the movement of the water. But we didn't have to guess where we were supposed to go. Derek was already there, leaning casually against a sleek, black speedboat that looked too new, too expensive for a place like this. "Come on," he called out, flashing that same easy smile. "Before the cold gets worse." Nobody hesitated. We climbed aboard like we'd been hypnotized. I paused for just a second at the edge, looking down at the water. It was dark. So dark, it looked solid. Only the faintest ripple showed where the boat pressed against it. Off in the distance, there were occasional soft pops and snaps, the sounds of the forest settling, or maybe something else. But mostly, silence. A thick, heavy silence that pressed against the eardrums. The engine started with a low growl. As we pulled away from the marina, the last lights of civilization disappeared behind a curtain of mist. It was like stepping through a veil. And in that moment, standing on the deck, watching the shore vanish into the fog, I still thought it was just an adventure. Just another crazy story we'd laugh about later. I had no idea that the real story, the one that would haunt me for the rest of my life, was only beginning. As soon as we set foot on the shore, I knew something was wrong. The sand wasn't right. It felt too soft, too alive underfoot. Almost like something just beneath the surface was shifting, breathing. I shook it off, blamed the alcohol, told myself I was just tired. We followed the group along the shoreline. Visibility was almost nothing. The mist was so thick it felt like we were walking inside it, not through it. Still, something about it seemed heavier here, almost sentient. We stumbled into a rough trail, winding through crooked trees and low, clawing branches that snagged at our clothes like grasping hands. And then, ahead of us, lights. Faint at first, then brighter, shimmering in colors that didn't belong. Pale blues and sickly greens swirling through the fog. We pushed through into a clearing. This was where the real party was happening. Somewhere, faint and distant, music played. Muffled, almost underwater. It seeped through the trees, barely touching the edges of the clearing. Tents had been hastily set up around the perimeter. They glowed faintly, lit by torches. But the flames weren't yellow. They burned cold blue. Blue fire that gave no warmth. People were dancing, drinking, laughing. But it wasn't right. The laughter would start sharp, then just cut off mid-breath. Smiles froze halfway, too wide, too stiff. Logan didn't seem to notice. He disappeared into the crowd, swept up in the chaos. Chris wandered after him, eyes wide, like a kid seeing Disneyland for the first time. And me? I tried to act normal. Tried to tell myself it was just some weird, ultra-rich, eccentric thing. That this was just how people partied when they had too much money and no limits. But deep down, I knew. We had crossed a line, and there was no way back. As I moved between the glowing tents, my stomach clenched tighter. There was something wrong with the faces. Everyone looked the same. Not exactly identical, but the same two wide smiles, the same dull, glassy eyes, as if whatever joy they showed wasn't theirs, wasn't even human. And then I saw her. In the shadows at the edge of the clearing, a girl, standing perfectly still, just staring at me. Her face was frozen in a parody of a smile. It tried to mimic something human, and failed. I tore my gaze away, heart pounding. Near one of the larger tents, I spotted Derek again. He was deep in conversation with two men dressed in stark white. When he saw me, he smiled. That same, easy, soothing smile. "Relax, Nathan," he said softly. "Enjoy yourself. You deserve this." His voice didn't seem to hit my ears the normal way. It slid into my mind like a warm, heavy fog. I tried to smile back. I think I failed. Because every part of me was screaming now. This wasn't just a party. This wasn't just a place. It was a portal. And we had already stepped through. I kept telling myself it was just my imagination. That the broken, mechanical smile the girl gave me meant nothing. But the air around me grew heavier, thicker. Each breath felt like I was inhaling something solid, something that didn't want to leave. The distorted pulse of music continued, but it felt wrong, like it was bleeding through from somewhere else. Then, a burst of laughter cracked near me. Too loud, too sharp, too real. I whipped my head around, but there was no one there. The tents, the swirling blue mist, the blurred silhouettes dancing. They all looked like they were melting, bleeding into one another like watercolors left out in the rain. Chris and Logan were gone. I searched through the crowd, pushed through pockets of laughter and cold, blank faces. But it was like the island had swallowed them whole. My heart pounded painfully in my chest. I staggered forward, desperate to find something solid to cling to. That's when I heard it. Whispers. crawling out from the fog. It wasn't English, or any language I could recognize. It was guttural. Wrong. The words seemed to wrap around each other, knotting themselves inside my ears, slithering down into my chest like a sickness. I squeezed my eyes shut, tried to block it out. But even in the dark, I saw them. Figures. Tall. Skeletal. Heads stretched into unnatural shapes. They didn't dance. They didn't smile. They didn't move. They just stared. Near the far end of the clearing, a larger tent shifted and pulsed, like something inside was struggling against it. Nobody else seemed to notice. I should have left. God, I should have run. But when you're trapped in a nightmare, part of you wants to believe you're still dreaming. So I stepped closer. Each footfall was heavier, harder. The ground itself seemed to cling to me. As I neared the tent, the air filled with a stench. Burned meat, metal, and something horribly sweet. The canvas rippled again. I reached out, fingertips brushing the rough, sticky surface, about to lift it, about to make the worst mistake of my life. Then, a hand clamped down on my shoulder. I froze. Slowly. I turned, and there he was. It was Derek, smiling, calm, almost tender. But up close, I could finally see it. He wasn't entirely human. His eyes, they didn't blink, didn't move like they should. They just stared. And under the cold blue light, his skin looked wrong, too smooth, almost translucent. "Nathan," he whispered. His voice wasn't in my ears. It slid directly into my mind. "You feel it, don't you?" I couldn't speak. My body wanted to run, scream, collapse. But I was frozen. Finally, I croaked out, What is this place?" Derek tilted his head, like he was listening to some far-off sound only he could hear. He waited. And then, so quietly, I almost didn't catch it, he said, "Some call it Zarathiel." The word hung in the air. Thick, heavy, poisonous. I wanted to ask more, wanted to demand answers. But Derek just smiled again. That slow, knowing smile. "Words are too weak for what you've touched." He turned away, fading into the mist, and in the next blink, everything was gone. The tents, the lights, the people. Gone. I was standing at the marina, alone. The cold wind slicing across my skin. The sharp stink of old wood and damp metal filling my lungs. I didn't know how I got there. Didn't know how much time had passed. Chris and Logan were there too, slumped over on a bench like they'd been thrown there. They woke up slowly, groggy, confused. They remembered flashes, blue lights, whispers, overwhelming fear, but nothing else. They blamed the alcohol, blamed the confusion. They didn't want to talk about it. Neither of them wanted to remember. We stumbled home in silence, each of us trapped inside our own private nightmares. The days that followed blurred into each other. I went back to work, back to the routine, back to pretending. I saw Chris and Logan a few times after that, but when I tried to bring up the night, their faces would go blank. They'd change the subject, act like I hadn't said anything. It was like whatever had happened was off limits, forbidden. And little by little, we drifted apart. But something stayed. Something clung to me. Sometimes, riding the bus home, I'd catch glimpses in the reflections. Shadows. Faces I almost recognized, lurking in the mist outside the windows. At night, lying in bed, I could hear it. The whispers. Software inhuman. Words I couldn't understand. But I felt like they understood me. And always. That name. Zarathiel. Beating inside my mind. A second heart I couldn't silence. The dreams came next. Endless, crumbling corridors, lit by pale blue torches. Mirrors where my reflection whispered back at me. Eyes, white and glowing, peering from corners I couldn't reach. Sometimes, I'd wake up certain there was something waiting at my bedroom door. Not moving. Not making a sound. Just waiting. One night, half asleep, I swear I heard Derek's voice, whispering my name from down the hall. I jumped out of bed, flipped on every light, but nothing was there. Nothing I could see. Time passed. Life moved on. At least for everyone else. For me, it was different. On foggy days, when the mist swallowed the streets, the fear came rushing back. Sometimes in the crowd, I'd catch a glimpse, a flash of a too familiar face, a half-remembered smile, eyes just a little too bright. One night, sitting alone at a bar, I heard it. Music. A slow, distorted melody seeping through the walls. My skin prickled instantly. I shot up from my seat, knocking over my drink. Nobody else reacted. Nobody except one figure, sitting alone at the far end of the bar, back turned, wearing a tattered jacket stained with mud. My heart stopped. The figure shifted slightly, and I saw it. That smile. Crooked. Unnatural. I blinked, and he was gone. Over time, I even started to doubt myself. Had I really been there? Or had it all been some drunken hallucination? Maybe it doesn't matter. Because Zarathiel isn't a place you visit. It's a place that, once it touches you, never lets you go.
If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more terrifying encounters. Have you ever experienced something you couldn't explain? Something that still haunts you? Share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear it. Until next time, stay safe out there. You never know what's waiting beyond the mist.